my career, let me give you a quick overview of my career. I spent 7.5 years as a deputy director in Sacramento in the 1980s in the Duke-Majan administration. As a result, I worked with the legislature, Democrats and Republicans, every single day. And I'll tell you, it was bad back then. 2 years ago, as a judge, I needed to make a small change in the law. And so I sort of took it upon myself to go down to Sacramento and have Assemblywoman Beth Gaines introduce a bill. And I'm talking, and this bill dealt with, if any of you know, court-appointed special advocates. As a judge, I dealt with cases all the time. And the law didn't permit us to do what a lot of judges in the state were doing. And of course, given judges, they sat around and talked about it. Nobody could go do anything about it. And so I went down to Sacramento after my history of dealing with the legislature, and I go in and talk to some of the Democrats who are always talking about how, we're with the kids and we really want to help the kids, and they had no clue whatsoever about what it was we needed to do in California to stay within the law. And these are members of the legislature that you would expect and were committee chairs, and you'd expect that they would know what was going on. But just as our next state senator said,
That's right.
It's the staff down in Sacramento. They capture these people. They keep them dumb. They don't want legislators in Sacramento, and particularly Democrat legislators, that have any thought on their own. And that's where people like John Morlock and Bruce Whitaker are going to have a real impact in Sacramento, because they're coming to Sacramento and they actually have signed paychecks. They've actually had to understand what goes on, down right on the street level. And that's why we're going to make a difference here in 2018 in this state. Now, listen to the mainstream media, and I don't like necessarily using that term, but I don't know how to really explain the likes of the San Francisco Chronicle and the Sacramento Bee and the Los Angeles Times and those papers other than to call them the mainstream media. If you read what they write, we have no chance, the election's over, don't bother going out and voting. Let me tell you, that's not true. I've been from the furthest point north to the furthest point south in this state, from east to west. There is a movement happening. We talk about a groundswell. It's happening here in California. Believe me. And I'm going to give you some numbers in a little bit, but I want to take a few seconds and just give you a quick history. Told you I spent 7.5 years as one of George Duke-Majan's appointees in the Department of Social Services. Now, I never expected as a Republican that I was going to be put in social services. I thought I would be in the Department of Commerce or something, because that's where all Republicans go. But they put me into the Department of Social Services. Had a profound effect on me. I worked on welfare reform. I worked on a whole lot of issues dealing with seniors and kids, which later came in helpful when I was a judge. I spent almost 20 years as an attorney, practicing attorney in this state. And that's going to be significant in this race in 2018. Because believe it or not, the Democrats in this race, and there's going to be one at the top in June, probably Becerra. He was for 26 years inactive in the state of California as a lawyer. He has never practiced law in our state. And in fact, he graduated from law school here, went to Massachusetts as a public interest lawyer, and spent 5 years in Massachusetts before the Democrats sent him back here to run for the Assembly and then Congress. And he spent the rest of his life in Washington. But he's best the Democrats could find to occupy the office of Attorney General. I was elected in 2008 to the Superior Court in El Dorado County. I spent 8.5 years as a Superior Court judge in El Dorado County. What's significant about that is when I went on the bench in 2009, California still had what I call a relatively robust criminal justice system. We put people in prison who couldn't comply with the basic norms of society. If you went out and wanted to be a professional criminal, commit serious violent felonies, and you did it more than one time, that was the three strikes. And by the way, I have Mike Reynolds from Three Strikes, and Bill Jones, who was our former Secretary of State, and Mark Klass, all endorsing me for Attorney General. But beyond that, as soon as Jerry Brown got elected in 2010, when he got elected, he had been the California Attorney General. And just like most Democrats, they don't really show their true colors until they get into the top spot. And we had Jerry Brown and Kamala Harris as our top legal officials in the state, governor and attorney general. And what did they first do when they got in there? The very first thing they did was pass, along with the Democrat-controlled legislature, AB 109. And what did AB 109 do? It started sending felons from our state prisons back to our county jails. Now, when they did that, just like Democrats always do, they said, we're just going to give your local government all this money from Sacramento. Money that they'd already taken from you, which could have stayed in your local community in the first place, but they were going to shower it upon the local officials. And so everybody's all giddy and happy, and they're going to get all this money. And what actually happened? We filled our county jails up with state prison felons. Yeah. And when we did that, what was the result? We started emptying our jails of the, quote, low-level criminals. And so what did the low-level criminals do? Well, what low-level criminals do, and that is go out and commit more crimes. And some of them weren't low-level crimes. Some of them were assaults and murders, because that's kind of what professional criminals do. But that wasn't good enough, because then they came back and they had Prop 36. And Prop 36 was, let's just release them from state prison back onto our streets. And so they started that process. And then we got, then they promised us that we were going to get safe streets and schools. Remember that? Yeah. And you know what we had, by the way, just all this savings that you were going to have. They were just going to take that and they were going to put it in a big bag and they were going to come down to San Bernardino and just dump it out on the floor of the Board of Supervisors. And there would be so much money to provide rehabilitation for these people. But what did we actually get? We got a ballot title and summary that lied to us.
Yep.
Said that you were going to get safe streets and schools. You didn't. How many think you have a safer street here in San Bernardino County? Do you? No. Because if you do, I've got a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you. So what we ended up with is not safer streets, not safer schools, and guess what? In 2015, the year after the initiative passed, how much money do you think the governor showered upon San Bernardino County? Like zero.
None.
And in 2016, it was zero. And in 2017, it was zero. But the criminals, he certainly showered those on you. He sent people back from state prisons. He didn't send those people to live on his ranch in Colosa or outside the state capitol or even down at Nancy Pelosi's place. No, he sent them right to your streets because that's where people go when they're paroled. So now they were on your streets. And did we get the Rodney King effect where everybody was just going to be nice to one another? not a chance. What we ended up in California is annual increases at double digits in crime all over California. It wasn't just in Los Angeles or San Bernardino or in Orange, but in Sacramento and in El Dorado and in Shasta. Any place you looked in this state, crime started spiking. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out why. It's the Democrat failed policies. The same policies that they put in place when Jerry Brown was governor in the 1970s. You know, unlike most people, I'm a native son of California. I was born in this state. I'm a Northern California. By the way, my wife is from Fullerton. She went to Sunny Hills. Okay. We won't talk about years. But I met her down in Orange County, and we've been married for 41 years. She doesn't spend the time traveling around California. I send her around Northern California as my surrogate to various events. But we grew up here. She's a native of Fullerton and born here in California, both of us. We're actually part of the minority now in the state. Most people moved here when California was the Golden State, when its schools were good, when crime was low. But everything's changed in the last 8 years. Now, I was a Superior Court judge, and those of you who know about Superior Court judges know that while we served 6-year terms, and I was elected in 2008 with 66.1% of the vote in my community. In 2014, when I came up for re-election, nobody ran against me. So I was unanimously elected. I could have gone as long as I wanted on the Superior Court as a judge, but I saw things changing. I saw the very same people that I had sent to prison, and by the way, judges are in a unique position because everybody else, and I'm not being critical of district attorneys because they have come in here and tell you how tough they are in crime and how they sent this person, that person to prison. That's all nice for them to say, except judges really do it. I actually have people sitting in the state prison, if Jerry Brown hasn't let them out by now, that are doing life. And they're doing life for a particular reason, because they couldn't conform with basic norms, and they were a danger to you, to me, to my kids and my grandkids. I made those decisions, but I'm looking at what's happening in California. I could still be sitting on the Superior Court. However, it's one thing to sit around your chambers with your colleagues and whine and complain about what's happening in California. And I'm talking about Democrat judges and Republican judges in the state, because we all think the same. We think California is going in the wrong direction. However, we can't all get up and say that. In fact, none of us can say that because that would sound political, right? So the only way to do that as a Superior Court judge is to say, I'm going to retire and go do it. Because complaining about it doesn't do you or me any good. And so last year, I said, okay, I'm going to go out and talk to people and I'm going to run for Attorney General. So I started mentioning that I want to run for Attorney General. But just doing that doesn't really pull the trigger. I started looking at some numbers. And in 2016, Donald Trump, who by the way is a lot smarter than anyone thought. Donald Trump, looked at the United States. He was running based on the Electoral College. And he realized that if he wins in Pennsylvania and Michigan and Wisconsin and Minnesota and places like that, he could be president of the United States. He also realized that he didn't need to win in California. So he didn't campaign. And those of you who worked for him and made phone calls realized where you were calling. And it wasn't to Ontario or Pomona. So, This guy is brilliant. However, in California, we got crushed in 2016. So the California Chamber of Commerce, they do a survey every single year in the state because they kind of want to know what the electorate's thinking. And so they go out in October, actually right after the election, so November 2016. And at that time, the Democrats would have defeated a Republican candidate for governor by 13 percentage points. And you're going, how do we win? One session, 2017. Democrats have owned everything in California. They've got the governor, they've got the attorney general, the lieutenant governor, every single office, every lever of power in the state. The voters had given them in 2016. And so what did they do with it? Passed sanctuary state, passed every tax they could come up with, including the gas tax. If they could conceive of the tax, they passed the tax. If they can conceive of a way of destroying our criminal justice system in 2017, they passed that. In October 2017, California Chamber, and I always like to joke because, you know, I'm sure that our next senator knows, you know, you go to the California Chamber and you say, hey, you know, the business community has a reason you ought to get together with us and, you know, support us. And what do? Give their money to the Democrats. Yeah. So, you know, I like to call them my right-wing friends in Sacramento. They're the establishment in Sacramento, actually. They took another survey. And in October of 2017, the generic ballot was +3 for Democrats. It had changed by 7 or 10 points in 1 year. And their response to the political class in Sacramento is, what a difference a session makes. We took a survey in June of 2017. Because at that time, I had to make a decision of whether I was going to run for Attorney General. Because I don't do these things just so that I can feel good because I was a candidate. And you know, it's not that much fun, I'll tell you. Running from north to south, being on a plane most of the time, never seeing your wife. I've got a cardboard cutout so that she remembers. I use, by the way, this picture that's on the front because I like that picture better than the one I look today. You know, I had to know whether we had a shot at winning. And so we looked at a couple things. We looked at ballot titles. And what we found was that a judge is literally, no joke, the only office that has universal respect across the board. Everyone else is considered a politician, sorry. But a judge is not. And it pulled Democrats and independents. And in particular, it pulled very strongly independent voters. So, I look at that, I announce my retirement July 5th, retire effective August 31st, and on September 1st started the campaign for Attorney General. And I've been on the road almost every single day since September 1st of 2017. California, think a Senate district is big. Try campaigning statewide. Because we're not in this to lose. Now, why do I think it's important and why do I think we can win in 2018? Well, number one, after the Democrats passed every single tax that there was, taxes became the number one issue. Depending on the day, after crime had doubled year after year, double digits year after year, crime had moved from, you know, around number 5 or 6, 8 years ago to either number 1 or 2, depending on who got assassinated this last week. They took a survey, public opinion survey, in January of this year. And they asked, is California going in the right direction? And at that point, it's no mystery. Republicans think we've gone in the wrong direction. It's not, are we going to go in the wrong direction? We've been going in the wrong direction. Independents, however, agreed California was going in the wrong direction. But the thing that shocked the political class is that 42% of the Democrats in this state think we're going in the wrong direction. What do you think that means to those of us who are conservative, law and order, low taxation, limited government people? It means we can talk to Democrats. Unlike any other election cycle, the Democrats have finally convinced their own party that they can't lead. And the failed policies that the Democrats have been promoting are coming home. People understand that the policies are going in the wrong direction. We can message to them in 2018. Unlike any other election cycle, maybe in the last 20 years. That's why it's so important to elect a new state senator in your district. That's why we can elect candidates statewide. We can elect a new attorney general in the state. Because, I served as a member of the Jenny Commission. Jenny Commission evaluates judges. And 2 of the judges in Sacramento that I got to evaluate, this is back when Gray Davis was governor during that period of time. And I had the opportunity to evaluate 2 Democrat judges who were ultimately appointed by Gray Davis. And just in the last year, if you remember the gas tax ballot title and summary written by the Attorney General, Bracero, it was one of the judges, they were Democrats, they were no conservative judge, but they said, both the judges said, this Attorney General's office can't be trusted to write fair and honest ballots and summaries. These are Democrat judges. What's happening in California? But we have an opportunity. That's what's happening in California. An opportunity to message to Republicans, Independents, and Democrats and win. And that's why it's so important that we be fired up. We get out in June. We are going to make a change in California in 2018. We are going to win statewide. I frankly think that we could elect a Republican governor in this state.
Right.
Do you think the Democrats, if you think it's going crazy in Washington with the deep state, can you imagine what would happen if we elected a California governor that's a Republican, an attorney general that's a Republican? By the way, we'd have 1,100 lawyers because they bolstered the attorney general's office by another 100 lawyers to fight the Trump administration. We're going to take those 100 lawyers, and I'll tell you what we're going to do with them. They're going to start scratching the surface on the corruption in Sacramento, and we're going to start prosecuting some of those people.
Yeah.
Tell you what else we're going to do. Before I move the 100 lawyers over to prosecute people, we're going to fire the management in the top of the Department of Justice and in the Attorney General's office. We're going to get new people who are concerned about taking care of California's problems, not trying to clean up the air in Beijing or sue the federal government. It's time for that nonsense to stop. There's not enough money in California to pay for that kind of nonsense. Let me tell you, I have as much concern about our environment as anyone else. But I'll tell you, when Javier Bracero went down and stood on the border in San Diego about 6 months ago to announce his lawsuit about the border wall, he's standing right above some of the most polluted water in the entire country coming out and polluting the Pacific Ocean right there in the Tijuana River.
Right.
What's California doing to solve that problem? Why isn't that a major problem to the Attorney General? The river, the new river in Calexico, that flows right into the Salton Sea. It is the most polluted river in the United States. And yet, what's the state of California, what's the Attorney General doing to solve that problem? Zero.
That's right.
Because he's so concerned with suing Washington on every single issue that comes up that he doesn't have time to worry about your problems. What are they doing about double-digit crime increases? Not a thing. In fact, they can't get people out of prison fast enough. We are going to make a change in 2018. The electorate is coming to our side, but we've got to be able to talk to them. And that takes money. It takes money for your next state senator. He needs your help. He needs your help right now. I mean, he can talk about how it's not, the big money's gone someplace. The big money always goes someplace else. But he needs your help. And I'm not here endorsing candidates. I don't really, I don't live in the district. I'm just telling you that if you like what he had to say, you need to be prepared to help him. You need to get out there and walk for him, and you need to write checks to him. Same is true in the race for Attorney General. We've done very well, and we are going to win this election. We're going to be in the top 2 come June. That's what our internal surveys show right now. But ultimately, it's not a product of us just hoping. I need you out walking. I need you out calling. I need your money too. Because we've got to be able to message to Republicans here in California, to Democrats and independents, because I run top 2. It's myself and somebody else. Could be 2 Republicans, could be another Democrat. But it could be what we got last time if we're complacent. Remember the U.S. Senate race where we ended up with 2 Democrats running? It wasn't even a good choice, by the way. It was who could out-liberal the other. And what did we get in Washington? We got somebody that's now there for 2 days, and she's running for president. Where did California and California problems sit in her equation when she was running? Didn't. So the opportunity is there. We can win this race in 2018. Open it up to questions. You have a question.
Yes, I do. Are you in contact with Jeff Sessions? Because obviously Sessions is going after Becerra, Becerra's going after Sessions. That works to your advantage right there. You're a non-controversial person.
It works to my advantage. I believe sanctuary state is unconstitutional, just plain, simple, unconstitutional. The thing that upsets me about Jeff Sessions is he might get it declared unconstitutional before I can get there, so I can have it unconstitutional. But in any event,
are you in contact with him at all?
there isn't any linkage between what the U.S. Attorney General is doing and the lawsuits in the Eastern District. Frankly, it's going to take some time before that. It's not going to get decided at the district court. I think the federal government will win at the district court level. I think it'll be overturned at the Ninth Circuit. Everything gets overturned at the Ninth Circuit. And then it'll be at the U.S. Supreme Court. And that's actually where we need it. We need the U.S. Supreme Court to come down and declare what these states are doing as unconstitutional. And when they do, that's going to put a stop to it. Let's go here.
Okay, you said you're the Ginny Commission?
Yes.
Evaluate judges?
Yes.
Massively important. That's one of the things we like to get out. Because people don't know how to vote for judges. They don't know anything about them. They don't know.
I'll tell you, I'll give you some inside baseball stuff. The Ginny Commission is a commission appointed, it's a statutory commission. It's appointed by the state bar. It evaluates judges that the governor is considering to appoint. It's
Oh.
not,
Oh.
it doesn't evaluate judges that are running for election or re-election,
Or on the bench now.
or on the bench now. And it's done, it was originally created to slow down the appointment process, because it takes anywhere
Sounds
from
like
3 to
something
6 months.
that politicians would do, slow down the meeting.
If you remember, all the way back in 1979, when Jerry Brown was the governor, Mike Kerr, who was the lieutenant governor at the time, attempted to appoint a judge to the Court of Appeal. And the Democrats had a conniption over it, and so they created this commission, which I had the honor to serve on. They created the commission so that it takes 90 days for a judge to be evaluated and then sent to the governor's office. And that was designed because no governor was going to be out of the state for 90 days, because what happened is the governor left the state and Mike Kerr appointed the judge. So,
But let me ask you,
Yes.
we're running out of time. We would really like your input for whoever's running for whatever, the state Supreme Court, you know, the lower courts, appeals, because we do have a website we
Sure.
use, but that is something, if we
I'd
can
vote
get that
against.
information out, and we can vote for conservative
Yeah.
judges, that's fantastic.
yeah, I'm not going to tell you exactly how to vote, but all the people running on the state Supreme Court,
Recommendations.
I'm voting against. And the appellate judges, I'm voting against, particularly Richard Huffman. I think he's
We'd
horrible.
like your recommendation.
Your
I'm
Honor,
taking no position here, but I know Richard.
Your Honor, there is one or two things I do need a position on,
Sure.
please. You're standing on the rights of the unborn humans.
Pro-life, but I do have some exceptions. Life of the mother, rape and incest,
Okay.
okay?
And Second Amendment.
Supported by gun owners of California, rock hard Second Amendment. Always have been. Expect that ultimately California Rifleman Pistol Association will endorse me, and proud to get their endorsement if and when that happens. We've been in contact with them. And also NRA, proud to get their endorsement. Hasn't happened yet, but proud to get their endorsement if it happens. Yeah.
Okay, concerning the Second Amendment, all the plethora of new laws that came
Sure.
across. Okay, as I see them, many of them aren't even constitutional.
I agree.
So,
But breaking them
is that-
down, I
is that
think they'll-
something that you can just toss out as
Some
Attorney
we can
General, or do
change.
you have to get legislation to undo all of it?
We can control the regulatory process and will. If I think that they have gone beyond what the statute is, I can change the regulations. I can't just arbitrarily change the statute, However, the Attorney General, when a lawsuit is filed, the Attorney General controls how the state answers the lawsuit. So, I can't and I won't, because I don't want to end up being recused, say directly how I would answer many of the Second Amendment lawsuits. But I'm going to look at them and compare it to the Second Amendment itself, and compare it to federal law, Heller, and the other statutes. And we are going to look very carefully at where California stands on gun laws. Guns, by the way, I said this in a debate in Sacramento, the only statewide debate that likely will be held. I'm going to stand with law-abiding citizens on their gun rights. It's not the guns that create the problem. It's people and their mental health primarily that are creating the problems with guns.
Yeah.
Go on.
In the back.
Yes, something I heard in NPR was interesting. It costs California $75,000 per prisoner,
Right,
yet the average for the country is 25,
sure.
and Louisiana is 15. And then they went on to explain why, and the gentleman said pensions.
Yeah,
And where else can you be a high school graduate to make $200,000?
sure.
And is that, is this,
The Attorney General has no direct responsibility on pensions.
No
And nor on the prisons themselves. That's an executive, a governor's area. I am solid law and order. I want people to be in state prisons. I don't think that people that commit serious, dangerous, violent felonies deserve to be back on the street, particularly if they've done it multiple times. As I told somebody the other day, and I'm concerned about the cost. Your next senator is going to take care of and start looking at that. Your next governor is going to start looking at pension reform. But the bottom line is, it's really not a matter of whether it costs 75 or 35 or whatever. It's a matter of spending that kind of money or having those people out on the street and your life is in danger. You could be their next victim because they don't typically pick and choose who they're going to victimize. My attitude is there's a certain cost that we as taxpayers have to keep ourselves safe. And one of the ways to keep ourselves safe is to keep those type of people off the streets and in our state prisons. So, sorry, I can't get it to where you want it, but I know how it will be done. Secondly, I think we need to look at who it is getting pensions. And I've told this to a lot of law enforcement people, because I think pensions are critical. We have a lot of people that are either drawing pensions in the state from government and or potentially will. We have huge unfunded liabilities in this state that need to be addressed, or we're going to be broke. Or we're going to have situations where the bankruptcy courts, in a lot of instances, particularly on our local levels, are going to start saying, we're going to impair those contracts. You may think you have a right to a pension. I, as bankruptcy judge, I'm going to set a new level. And that's going to harm people all over California. If we don't get focused on pension reform today, it's not going to be very many years before we have a true pension crisis in this state where, when I say true, we can't pay the money because there's just no more money.
Something I recently found out is that some Caltrans employees get the same pension as CHP.
Exactly. And that's where I was going. We need to start looking. Those prison guards, they could be dead today, literally, because those prisoners, and I've sent some to prison. I actually had some clients as a defense attorney during my career who would tell me, oh, well, I was told to shank somebody, so I just went and shanked them. The shot caller said, get them, they got them. It is a dangerous business in our prisons. It is dangerous on our streets. Your local police and sheriff, every single day, their life is in danger. The people in the jails, every single day, their life is in danger. We need to think about their pensions differently than we think about the person pushing paper in the Department of Social Services or Caltrans or any place else. And by the way, my brother works for Caltrans.
If SB 1234 is good enough for corporations, why isn't it good enough for state employees?
No idea. No idea, but that's something the legislature is going to have to do. It's not going to come from the Attorney General directly, but we'll defend it if it's placed in front of us and somebody sues on it. And if the legislature passes it, the governor signs it, you know it's going to be sued upon. Yeah.
To complete the thought, if you're a sign, you put up signs for LA City,
Yeah.
you're public safety officer.
Yeah.
Take a pension, who put up signs?
Yeah, well, I can't fix,
Unbelievable, just.
I can't fix LA County. And I can't, well, I'd like to fix them, but I can't fix LA County. I can't fix what a lot of city government's doing. Too many people who haven't written a check before, who had no idea what pensions cost, are populating those offices. They're being put there by the public employee unions. You need to be careful when you see somebody that's supported by public employee unions and not being supported by public safety unions. You need to be careful with them.
Gavin Newsom has doubled down on the support of the unions.
Yeah. It's really dangerous. Any other questions? Hey, thank you, appreciate the opportunity.